All right, we're ready to go. Thanks everybody for coming. We're Anti-Piracy. We're going to talk about protecting pro audio. Assume that's important to people when you're getting ready to sell your software. And we're talking about various sorts of hacker threats that exist in the real world. We're going to start with a video that will show some of the basics about anti-hacking. This technique's very important. Oh, yeah. All right. Any questions? Okay, let's get serious. We are going to talk. And my name is Peter Richert. I'm an engineer. I help with the team that adds anti-hacking protection to code. Derek is a director of sales of our Pro Audio division. He'll be talking later on about some of the advanced licensing techniques that can be used for products. So today we're going to be starting with a real quick run-through of the software dream and how it can be shattered by hackers. That's sort of a silly part. Then we're going to get into what do hackers hack out of your code? How do they hack it out? How can you fight back? And also, theoretically, how can PACE help you with the fight? Okay, here comes the silly part, the software dream. It all starts with your cat, Oscar. Oscar has a great idea for a super duper audio plugin. So you get to work. And you work. And you work. And finally you're ready to introduce Oscar's super awesome pitch shifting plugin to the world. Whew. Unfortunately, it's so ugly. Nobody wants to buy it. But thankfully, somebody tells you about juice. So you get back to work. You go back to the drawing board and you work and you work and you work. And now you are ready to introduce your real masterpiece, Thunder Chicken, much better than that other one. Oops, I forgot to tell you something important. Because juice is so powerful, you also get to go skiing and play with some of your time. Okay, back to Thunder Chicken. Thunder Chicken has a beautiful user interface. It also has a chicken. That's the most important thing. Now what happens, you actually find that Thunder Chicken is really successful. It gets great reviews on the web, and a lot of people start using it. The amazing thing is, you start making some money. And because of that, you feel you've actually had the software dream. You feed Oscar some pizza, and you're ready to rock and roll. Unfortunately, something bad starts to happen. You notice that your sales are going downward and downward and downward until they're almost zero. You wonder what's going on here. The reviews on the web are still giving rave reviews for Thunder Chicken. People love it, and they're using a lot of audio sessions. So you do some more research, and you discover, unfortunately, Thunder Chicken has been hacked. It's available for free on a Martian website. All right, what are we going to do about this? So we're going to go through what it is that the hackers hacked out of the code so they could produce a free version and post it on the web. How do they hack it out? How you can fight back? And how could PACE help with the fight? What did the hackers hack? Well, I didn't mention Thunder Chicken has distributed throughout its code various checks that determine is a license valid. Your online store would have provided some sort of license, and it could have been a PACE license or a different scheme of your own. And you need to check every once in a while to see if your product is actually authorized for use by the customer. Validity of that license. So this is very, very simplified, of course, but you might have places like this in your code. Your draw GUI routine might check if the license is valid. If it is valid, it will show the actual GUI of your plugin or your program. Otherwise, it could show something that demonstrates that the license available to the customer. Render audio, similarly, would only do the real algorithm if the license is actually found to be on the user's system and valid. Otherwise, it could play silence or some other technique. So this is just a really ugly version of what Thunder Chicken does when there's no license. You can do something much better than that. All right, how would they hack out those license checks? We're going to first talk about the topic of static analysis. This is where the hackers can use advanced debugging tools and disassemblers to into your code and figure out what's going on. Some tools will give you a really robust block diagram of what your code is doing, strictly from looking at the binary code. They can show the data flow and the code flow to a pretty high level of detail. And once the hacker gets used to working with these tools, they can pretty quickly find things like license check code patterns and simply remove them from the code. Your code might have a whole bunch of routines in it. You might have chosen to put things like license checks or other security checks in a lot of different routines. These tools are also scriptable. So once the hacker has determined the basic pattern of what's going on, they can write a script that will automatically search for all presence of those patterns and simply remove them, as we saw with the simple example. All right, how would you fight this? To go against the topic of static analysis in these tools, you want to confuse the tools as much as you can. A first step would be, well, prevent them from showing those block diagrams, which allow the hacker to see so much of what's going on in your code. Even better than that, defeat it before they can even start to show the block diagram and prevent them from even finding any patterns like subroutines in your code. So these techniques are very highly proprietary, and any company such as Pace wouldn't be able to tell you the secret sauce, but I'm going to show you some of the results when a system is doing a good job of confusing the tools. In this particular case, the disassembler was able to do part of the block diagram, but it reached a point where it was just too complicated and confusing. Things were added to the code that got in the way of the disassembly process, and it had an analysis failure. In this next slide, it uh-oh, is that okay now? All right, I'm going to keep going. Before it could find any of the overall analysis of that code pattern, it had a bunch of analysis failures, and it had to resort to a raw assembly code. And even this assembly code itself is unreliable because it won't be able to detect instruction sequences. All right, we've just looked at confusing static analysis. Even more important than trying to defeat static analysis is to add binary hardening or tamper-proofing to your code. We are focusing on license checks, but there's another kind of check that will make sure that the binary itself has not been altered in any way. And it will, if that's working reliable, then it prevents everything. It would prevent removing of license checks or any other security techniques that have been put into the code. And the usual response to finding any alterations in your program is simply to crash. There's zero tolerance for hacking the actual binary of a program. So again, I can't go into this in great detail because it's proprietary for the PACE system or for any other system that does a good job of doing this. But the basic idea is that all throughout your code, in addition to things like the license checks, little blue boxes in the code would be constantly checking to make sure that the code has not been altered. We've looked at some static analysis. Another thing that hackers can do is hook the OS at key points, which allows them to actually backdoor into your code. So they can attack your code without altering it because they've altered the operating system or other DLLs instead. Bypass even binary hardening with this technique. So I'll just really simple pseudocode once again. Taking a look at that draw GUI routine, and it's going to call into the license valid routine. At some point, license valid or some other routine needs to call into an operating system API, such as read USB device. In a visual form, the license check stays here in Thunder Chicken, and then it has to call into an OS component to interact with hardware or some other service. If that OS component has been compromised, it can be altered by the hacker with knowledge of your code to go back and look at a previous stack frame and alter the data that's in that stack frame or something else in such a way that your product would always appear to be licensed even if no license is present. So for this particular hacker technique, we want to use displacement to move checking of any operating system results, move them both in time and in place, so that it won't be so easy to make that correlation by the hacker from a particular OS call into your own code. In addition, any data patterns on the stack need to be highly cryptographically secure, which is another way to prevent the hackers, even if they can sort of figure out what's going on, They won't be able to actually decrypt the data. Hides the data from the hackers. All right, real quickly, how can PACE help with these sorts of things? We have a top-tier system called the Fusion system, which is our strongest system. It's what we like to call best-in-class binary hardening. I'll pause here for a moment and mention that no binary hardening system is resistant forever against hackers. In PACE's 30-year career, we've generally had about a 5-year run for each of our techniques before hackers have hacked it. Then we come out with something better and stronger, and the hackers fight back, and they eventually figure it out, usually. We just introduced our latest generation. Only time will tell how long it will last, but it's our most powerful yet. We had automatic license check generation into the code. Advanced displacement techniques are used by both the binary hardening and the license check generation, and very advanced cryptographic techniques, including white box technology. In addition, we provide some samples like the source code for the juice-based Thunder Chicken. Now, at a slightly lower level, we have the PACE wrapper technology. This performs binary encryption, so at least your code is encrypted in on-disk format, so the hackers can't look at it quite as easily. It gets decrypted as it's loaded into memory. We add simple license check integration to the wrapper. It checks at program launch and also several times during the runtime of your program. As a convenience, we offer an activation experience, which is a user interface that comes up when the first time the program is launched and there's no license found. And it allows the user to install a license that they may have gotten from a web store or other technique. Now, speaking of licenses, I'm going to hand the floor to Derek. He's going to talk about different kinds of licenses that you might want to use and other topics. Here you go, Derek.
Thanks, Pete. How's everybody doing? Yeah, energized. As the industry standard in copy protection, we've developed a streamlined process to make it easy and simple to allow your products to get into the marketplace in no time. So once you've decided on the best level of protection to suit your business needs, and once you've chosen to allow your customers to activate that software to a physical iLock, to the iLock cloud, or to a machine-based license, now you have to get it to market. But before you can do that, you've got to figure out what types of licenses you're going to offer. So let's go over a few different license types and when and why you'd want to use them. Perpetual licenses. These are the easiest to get started and start selling directly on your own website and through dealers. Perpetual licenses are a license that will essentially allow the software to run forever, or at least as long as it remains compatible with the OS or whatever peripherals you have. Now, you may be tempted to use perpetual licenses for everything, for beta testing, for NFRs, but as we go through some other license types, you'll see that we have some better solutions. Trial licenses are critical for allowing your potential customers to evaluate the software before they make an eventual purchase. Trial licenses typically range from 7 to 30 days. And the most important part of trial licenses is getting to know who your potential customers are. So whether it's for a growing email list or a Facebook marketing campaign, you want to know who's trying these things out. So if your current method of using trial licenses doesn't allow you to collect this information, you're missing out on a huge opportunity for remarketing. All of PACE's reporting tools for all license types, including trials, provide the ever-important email address, as well as other information. Rentals are a time-based license that will expire after a certain time period. They tend to be popular more with larger corporations and with touring companies who manage concerts and tours across the world. Central purchasing departments can buy a license for a given time period, and they don't have to worry about going back and canceling it. It just stops, and they're done. Rent-to-owns are an offshoot of rental licenses and are becoming extremely popular in the virtual instrument segment of pro audio software. Subscription licenses. These are the fastest growing of any license type. Subscriptions can be weekly, monthly, quarterly, or annually. It's a time-based license that needs to be refreshed or renewed after a successful payment has been verified so that continue to authorize the software. Now, subscriptions are great if you continually add value, whether it's by adding new features, adding new compatibility, or adding actually new plugins to a bundle of some type. And it also provides a nice recurring revenue for software developers. The subscription revolution is here. In 2015, there were virtually no software subscription models out there for pro audio. In 2018 right now, we're nearing nearly 500,000 active subscriptions in Pace's licensing system alone. You might be surprised to learn that 80% of these are annual plans, while the remaining 20% are monthly or some other term. So how do you get started with offering a subscription service? First, you have to have a license management system. You have to have a payment system for automated payments. And you have to have a customer resource management database. And all three of these need to communicate with one another to make sure they're doing the right things. Suddenly, a simple go-to-market solution is not so simple. Not all licensing platforms have these tools and allow them to communicate with one another, but some do, including Pace's. The Pace integrated solution includes easy to buy now buttons, handles the license depositing of any license type, including subscriptions, and includes automated payment processing. So for more information on this solution, please come talk to me afterwards. A go-to market for perpetual licenses is slightly more simple, but it includes the ability to offer direct sales, dealer sales, and distribution. So direct sales are fairly easy to accomplish no matter what form of copy protection is being used, if any. If you provide your own content distribution network, it's pretty easy to verify a payment has been accepted before you send out serial numbers, before you send out installers. And most dealers will generally be happy to sell your products if they can make money off of them, and if the activation process is easy and simple. However, for larger dealers and distribution platforms, you're going to need a robust and reliable method for delivering that software activation method. The most critical aspect of this go-to-market solution is through the use of codes. Some people call them serial numbers. We call them activation codes at Pace. And not only is it a convenient way to get started selling directly and through dealers, but also it's mandatory for larger distributors who must remain in compliance with terms of their distribution agreements, and also who deal with vast amounts of virtual inventory. We have hundreds of clients in the pro audio market space. Here are a few of them. We have over 40 million licenses in our system, and we've started with a lot of these companies since the very beginning. McDSP, Isotope, Softtube, all started as 1 to 2 person companies. And we've been with them since the beginning, and we want to be there to help you grow into the next great audio brand. Even if you only have 1 or 2 products available now, you might be wondering how you can get started with subscriptions. Well, you can still initiate co-marketing partnerships with other brands to include your plugins as part of a combined subscription bundle. Here's an example of a company that does just that, and a quote from Stephen Slate himself. Now, back to Oscar. So, you always want to make Oscar happy, and you can always feed him some pizza. But if you really want to make Oscar happy, you'll get him sushi. So protect your hard work and your intellectual property so that you and Oscar can have some sushi together. Okay, so we spoke about how hackers can hack your code, why the hooking of OS library calls can compromise your code, how to confuse the hackers, medium versus intense protection options, various license types and when and why you'd want to use them, go-to-market solutions for perpetual license types and subscriptions, and why you need to start offering subscriptions now. To learn more about our copy protection solutions or licensing system, please come chat with Peter or myself. We'll be here today and tomorrow. We have a small little booth out there. Thank you for your time. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, wow, look at that. No questions. No questions. All right. Number 1.
Hi there, and
Hi.
thanks for the talk, and
Thank
thanks
you.
to Oscar. So this works clearly for like DLLs and executables. So, but what if you're a middleware company and you produce libraries that you then give to your partners and then they compile your software? Can you also protect libraries in the same way?
You're talking about content protection?
Yeah, like so basically what I do, for example, like I make a plugin, but I produce a library and then maybe I sell that. But what I want the other company to do is obviously use my library, but not be able to decompile it.
Right, right.
Can you protect it in the same way?
So you're talking about code libraries, not content libraries, correct?
Sorry, yes, correct. My bad.
Okay, so
Like a .lib.
the easy answer is if it's a dynamic library, well, you can provide paste protection to it just like you would to a plugin, which is also a dynamic library. For static libraries, we don't have a simple way at the moment, but we'd be willing to talk to you about that sort of thing if you get in touch with us. So I don't think at the moment we have any customers who provide a static library which we have protected for use in another product.
Right. Yeah, that was exactly my question. So thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll talk.
I think there was one more over here. Yeah? Yeah? I think he's got a mic for you.
If we have a product protected that activates on host computer, the license story, and we choose to have the trial on host computer and the license on the physical iLock, how unsafe is that?
As far as having the trial on, sorry, having
We
a trial on
we
the
have the
machine?
trial activating on the host computer, and
Oh,
then the actual product that activates on the iLock.
Well, actually, we have a better solution for you. The iLock Cloud, which we debuted last year at AES, it has pretty much the same security level as the physical iLock, and the majority of the reason why that was developed was for allowing more secure trial licenses. So a lot of customers are doing that now. They're allowing trial licenses for an iLock in the iLock Cloud. So as long as someone is connected to the internet, they can use that trial license. And then when they want to purchase it, then you can allow it to either be in the cloud or on a physical iLock.
Okay, so that's the best scenario to do.
Yes,
Okay,
the
thank
most
you.
secure scenario.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So for Fusion protected applications or plugins, is there any disadvantage in performance?
Pete is our Fusion expert.
Okay, Fusion involves profiling of your code. So there is a performance impact when Fusion routines check for the binary integrity or check for a license. But the profiling puts those portions of code activity into the somewhat lower frequency areas of your code. And definitely, we provide lots of ways to make absolute certain it will never occur in your audio rendering code or your higher performance GUI code.
Good question.
Do you offer a solution also for mobile applications and plugins?
Not at this time. Only for Macintosh and Windows.
Thanks.
Hello, thanks
Hello.
for presentation.
Thank you.
Do you plan to make any tool that helps with automatic builds and CI? Because using Fusion on automatic builds, it's not possible.
Well, I would love to, but that'd be more of an engineering question.
Is there an
long-term
engineer
planning.
here? So you sound like you have experience with Fusion. Is that true?
We try to use it, yeah.
All right. So as the years go by, we continue to try to improve that situation. It is Fusion. What we like to say about Fusion is it's not so easy. And we don't ever like to say anything worse than that. But we've recently, some of our customers are using CMake. For a while, CMake had been one of the hardest to integrate CI systems for use with Fusion. But now that we've started to use CMake ourselves, we will be focusing on that area. And even if you don't use CMake, I think as we're focusing on that, it will force us to face some of the realities of CI systems and to make the system easier. That's probably the best answer I can give you right now.
Okay, thank you.
Someone else up here. Oh.
Let's say I have a new plugin that I intend to sell, let's say 30 euros. I expect selling maybe 1,000, 2,000 copies in the next year. How much, which type of subscription would you advise, and how much does it cost approximately?
Well, costs, come speak to me afterwards.
Okay.
As far as you're asking about which level of protection would you advise, and the type of activation? It really depends upon who your target customer is. I mean, I don't know if you have a particular target customer in mind for using a particular DAW or not, but kind of at that price point, I would advise starting off with the wrapper protection, getting it out there, getting it introduced into the market, but not putting your best foot forward necessarily, because that'll just kind of get you introduced to the marketplace if you haven't already released a plugin.
Okay.
I also think doing different co-marketing partnerships with different DAWs or different plugins or different hardware manufacturers is an excellent way to get started in building it. So for that kind of price point, typically a lot of people will do what we call a light version of a plugin, and then maybe you're developing a bigger one with more feature sets. And then for that one, you may want to increase the level of security and, of course, the pricing after that.
Okay, thanks.
Hope that's kind of an answer you were looking for.
Okay, I'll see you after.
Perfect.
For the cost.
Anyone else? You guys look super happy. Well, we appreciate you guys coming to listen to us. And again, please come speak with us. We're always interested in learning what kind of software people are developing. So please feel free to stop by. And you guys all should have gotten an iLock in your bags. Yeah? Don't throw away your bag. There's good stuff in there. So.
And thank you for
All
being
right.
such a...
Thank you.
Thanks for being such a great audience and not throwing anything at us, you know.